to introduce the next session, I'm now going to invite Vinay Virmani, Head Consumer Insights at Dabur India, on the stage. Vinay has close to 19 years of experience within the MR industry and has represented brands like Henkel, SC Johnson, and Reckitt before joining Dabur a couple of years ago. Vinay will introduce the next panel that discusses the maiden voyages of the young and the new age brands. Welcome, Vinay, and over to you.
Hi, everyone. That was a remarkable set of presentations, maiden voyages indeed, inspiring all of us to explore newer avenues, innovative approaches, and taking the industry forward. Speaking of which, we have with us a panel of sailors who set out with their ships into uncharted waters and have discovered newer lands already. How was their journey? What tides of the sea did they face? How did they know which direction to go? Our next panel discussion will delve into their amazing journey. It's my honor to introduce to you our panelists. We have with us Shreyas Naidu, Associate Director, Licious. Shreyas has worked in consumer insights for a little over 11 years, equally proficient in both qualitative and quantitative methodologies. He has worked with multiple brands across the world. Currently working with India's first D2C unicorn, he has had stints with Amazon and Kantar. He is currently mandated with solving the complex puzzle of the Indian culture and the food ecosystem. Alongside Shreyas, we have joining us in this discussion Sonam Gautam, Executive Creative Director, the Glamm Group. Sonam, after cruising through myriads of brands and products, finally found her love in beauty 9 years ago. Brands like Pantene, Garnier, L'Oreal, and Maybelline have given her the opportunity to work with teams across the globe, opened up her mind to different ideas and styles of working. Moving to client side, working as Executive Creative Director for MyGlamm, Scent Botanica, and Organic Harvest, she has brought her creative expertise, combined it with marketing, and created content that is relatable and path-breaking. We also have with us Rohan Talati, a portfolio partner and founding team member at Spring Marketing Capital, which is a skin in the game, consumer-focused marketing and investment firm. With over 13 years of brand and digital marketing experience, Rohan specializes in helping early and growth stage companies in building their marketing roadmap and growing into brands of tomorrow. Rohan has worked across categories with over 50 brands, including new age startups such as Wake Fit, Mosaic Wellness, Neo, Country Delight, Purple, and Tata 1MG, as well as legacy brands like Nike, Levi's, Volkswagen, and McDonald's. Moderating the discussion, we have Anju, partner, India business head at Quantum Consumer Solutions. Let's together welcome Anju and our esteemed set of panelists.
Thank you, Vinay, for that lovely introduction. And I think we have a young but extremely experienced and talented bunch of people with us. But before starting, I just want to thank the MCs. I think you all are doing such a fantastic job, Amanjeet and Simran. And I think also this event is like, it's got such a great turnout. You're a fantastic audience, so thank you so much for that. It's been a really enjoyable 1.5 days, and I hope you enjoy this before lunch. So if post lunch is called post graveyard session, I'm not sure what this is called, and we're going to make sure that it's enjoyable for all of you. So just before starting, before this discussion, I've had the chance to speak to all of them. And we were just discussing earlier that I found a pattern. All of them seem to hate something, right? Like, so Sonam says she hates the word reinvention. And Shreyas, I'll come to that last. Rohan says he hates the word disruption. And Shreyas actually says he hates consumers. So quite apt that he's at the MRSI annual seminar. So Shreyas, before you get into trouble, you want to explain that a little bit?
Is this on? Yeah. Okay. Hi everyone. I didn't realize it was going to be this controversial. Sitting in a room full of consumer insights researchers, and as a guy who has worked for, like, the introduction, more than 11 years in consumer insights. The reason why I say hate the consumer is because, especially the Indian consumer, he's mind-numbingly frustrating, often irrational, extremely complex. He never gives us an easy answer, he or she or whatever gender they might choose. Um, but that is also the beauty of it. That is what gives us a puzzle to solve. Otherwise, consumer insights in itself would be very boring. I had a small stint back in Dubai. I have seen consumers from different parts of the globe, etc. But the Indian consumer is mind-numbingly complex. I think it's not an easy puzzle to solve, and thereby I kind of hate it a little bit. But it also makes my job very exciting.
So, Rohan, Sonam, anything to add to that? Like, what is your view on the consumer?
Oh, I think I quite agree. I feel consumer is like dawn. Dawn ko pakadna mushkil hi nahi namumkin hai. They are extremely complex and ever evolving. So it's 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 a very challenging chase, and I quite like it.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I don't hate the consumer for sure, but I do believe that the consumer is the most difficult puzzle to crack. More than tech, more than analytics, more than AI. I think we're spending a lot of time trying to understand artificial intelligence, but understanding, I think, human intelligence and emotion is probably harder. So I get where you're coming from, but yeah, I'm more empathetic towards the consumer.
I agree. Hate is a strong word.
So, that's great. And like Vinay, introduced all of you that you come from new age businesses. So just to set the context, wanted to understand from all of you, when you say new age businesses, and there are many, many industry stalwarts here running, legacy businesses, what is the difference? I mean, why is there a distinction between, say, B2C and D2C, for instance? What do you think is the difference between what you all do and what the legacy businesses do?
So I've had the opportunity to work with some very, very large legacy businesses, and I work, and the difference is, I think fundamentals are the same, right? There is a strong focus on consumer. There is a strong focus on enhancing and elevating the consumer experience, and there is a strong focus on obviously creating value for the consumer. I think the biggest difference comes down to execution, and it comes down to the pace of executing on what the value that new age brands are trying to create, right? I think that's where I've seen the biggest difference. I think just to kind of summarize, I think the fundamental difference I've seen is I think legacy brands are focused on getting it perfect. New age brands, I think they all live by the mantra, done is much, much better than perfect. In fact, perfection is, I think, the enemy of getting started. So the focus is on getting to, getting your product out there, testing it, failing, trying again, iterating, and constantly evolving. I think for me, that's what I've seen as the biggest difference.
So perfection versus evolution, is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, to some degree, yeah.
Yeah, I would more or less agree, right? I think the primary question still remains the same. How do we create value for the consumer? I wouldn't profess to know how a legacy company works in its entirety with whatever knowledge that I have. I agree with Rohan in that they kind of tend to aim towards perfection. They also have the kind of luxury to be able to do that. Typically, these are legacy companies. They have existed for a long time. They're not fighting for their survival, and very often businesses, new age businesses, kind of are. So we cannot chase perfection. The idea, if we talk about legacy companies as perfection, what we do in new age companies is more an iterative perfection. We generally tend to do a lot more experimentation, learn on the way, pick it up. The entire idea of a new age business is to, if failing is inevitable, you fail fast, and you learn from your failures, then you move on. Adding to what Rohan basically said before, if the only thing that I can add to that is I think we move in a kind of an iterative perfection. We move smaller blocks, but we try and move as early as possible, as quick as possible. The only other change I would say is in terms of how we kind of try and solve problems. The Indian consumer ecosystem has evolved for a long time, and legacy systems were obviously built at a previous time, much earlier. We do not have the burden of the legacy system, so we kind of, that is the reason why we have B2C, we have D2C. D2C as a system was not enabled before. With the advances in technology and everything, we have a newer way of trying to solve the same issue. So we kind of, at the end of it, what are we trying to do? We are just trying to give the consumer more value, and we always have newer ways to do it, and that is because the ecosystem itself has evolved, and thereby we are a net product of whatever kind of change that we see in the ecosystem, larger change, and we are the smaller change that comes.
Very interesting. Sonam, anything else to add?
I think coming from the working majority of my career on legacy brands and then recently shifting to D2C, I think the biggest difference is that there we spend so much time into execution and then believing that what we have done is the best, that by the time we come to know that okay, this is not something which the consumer likes or dislikes, I think we have spent more than a year over just dwelling over it. But when I've come this side, it's almost like today we do something and tomorrow we know whether it's like the consumer is telling us no, I don't like it, and then it's like going back to, so it's the agility of this business which we are hearing the consumer constantly and kind of changing our strategy, kind of what they like and working towards this. It's almost it's 1:2. It's that. So I think that is the biggest difference, that we are working way too closely with the consumers, and the rate that in which we operate and change and evolve is way fast than how we work with legacy brands.
That's really interesting, because what I hear all of you say is there is a certain lightness, right, to what you all do, right? Like, so it's not heavy like the legacy businesses, and so there is a speed, there is a lightness. Some beautiful terms have been used like iterative perfection and constant evolution and so on. So that actually brings me to the next question, right? Because you're in such a hurry and perfection appears to be not the end goal, at least in the near future, it must be fraught with a lot of failures. So I wanted to know from all of you, can you give us examples of failures that you've had and experiences that you've had of when you've said that, oh, I wish we'd spent a little more time, I wish we had thought this through. Any examples like that?
It happens all the time. Always running against time.
So can you give us some examples from your own experience?
Sorry. I mean, like the word hate, I'm not a big fan of the word failure in the startup world, because I think when you fail, it's more about, it's not seen as a failure, it's about maybe ruling out something that didn't work, right? And again, I think it goes back to your first question. One of the learnings or the big differences between startup and legacy brands is in a lot of the companies, at least which I've had the opportunity to work with, sometimes they don't know what their final product or business is, right? So they're on that journey. So they like the direction, I mean, they don't know where their final destination is, but they're on the right direction, let's put it that way, right? So, for example, we work with very closely this company called Mosaic Wellness. They've seen the opportunity in a consumer segment, which is men, and they're building a brand for men, they're building a separate brand for women, and they're trying to solve men's problems through elective health. That was broadly what the company set out to do. In that journey, they had no idea what the product was going to be. So we tried multiple products in sexual performance, in hair, in protein. Out of, I think, the 7-8 categories we tried, 6 failed, right? Failed. Well, let's not call it. 6 we learned were not the right categories. 1 has worked and 1 has taken off, and it's taken us that much time to find. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I wish we had thought it through. We did. I mean, we tried. So I think we experimented with many. Some did not work. But the one that has now taken off. So this is now learning in the men's category as to what does not work.
Best of luck to them. How about both of you?
So yeah, so I think the biggest change is failure has been redefined, at least for the way that we work. The amount of it's a weird dichotomy, right? We simultaneously have too much data and too little data. I'll get back to the too little data a little later, but we have so much, especially as a D2C brand. We have the kind of visibility that is most probably not as clear to a lot of legacy systems. We have end to end, right? So no failure is really a complete failure. It is just a different thing that we learn for new, right? For example, there are tons of products. We ended up launching something like pickles when we initially started, meat pickles, and while it is a wonderful product, we still have some of it. It didn't really talk to the sensibilities itself, right? Meat pickle, apart from if you are the kind of community that actually pickles its meat, it sounds like a very disgusting concept. So what we really learned was we need to figure out scale and ended up putting a filter of scale, how democratic a product can be. I know I'm rambling a little bit about internal stuff, which a lot of people might not be interested. But essentially, from what I have learned here, failure has been redefined completely. I don't think anything is seen as a failure. The entire mandate given to almost anybody is go out there, do as many mistakes as you can, because we can learn something from it. The only difference is do it fast. Don't sit and keep wondering if this is the right thing. Find out if this is the right thing. Experiment as often as you can. That is absolutely fine, because at the end of it, we are doing this in good faith. We believe that we are doing this because we go and we talk to a consumer segment, and if we fail because there is something that we are learning new, not because of an effort. So I think that is more of a failure, and that is something which is non-existent in new age businesses.
Very interesting. Anything to add, Sonam?
To add, I will go back to the word reinvent, which I said that, that's my biggest. So, what we saying here as failure is what I say as reinvent the wheel, because that's what we do. We see that something is not working out, we see something is not being relatable, we continuously work on it, reinvent till the time we hit that, okay, yes, we have hit the right spot. So I think that's what we keep doing in this state.
All right, so that's really interesting. I'm sorry for using the word failure, but I think one of you used it earlier. But so the new word is learning and continuous learning and making sure. I think like what I hear from all of you is there is a built-in resilience to being in the businesses that you're in, because you're not looking at anything as gone wrong or gone right, but you're saying what can I learn from it and how can I become better, and that's really interesting and probably very valuable for all of us in the research fraternity as well, because I think we're also at a cusp, right? Like there are so many new things happening, and then there is the old systems. Where do you go is a question that all of us are asking on an everyday basis. So I think that's great learning for all of us. Now, I also wanted to understand from all of you that the topic is discovering new opportunities in existing consumer behavior. So the consumer is behaving in a certain way for a very long period of time, and you all need to find new opportunities, right? So how do you define an opportunity? What according to you, Sonam, is an opportunity in today's world?
I think,
You want to hold the
yeah, sorry. I think cross selling is the biggest opportunity that we find in consumers. For example, an organic harvest consumer who we are already targeting, we already talking to, can be converted into a Sirona consumer, which can in turn convert into a Momsco consumer, because we are constantly talking to them. We know their needs, and that's where the opportunity is. The moment you know what they need is where you can create opportunities, you can make opportunities. So that's what I feel is the biggest thing that we can find, because we are so close to them that we know their needs, and this is the biggest opportunity where cross selling can be done.
Interesting. Any other definitions of an opportunity in this world, in your world?
I know. I think my bias as a consumer researcher and from my industry will come out a lot here. But basically, anything where the consumer is underserved, and this is this is very it's maddeningly it's maddening to me, especially because the consumer in the industry that I work in doesn't even demand, right? He's very happy with the commodity that is being served to him, and he doesn't deserve and it's in his mind he doesn't deserve it. And he's just happy with something which can be bare minimum quality given the bare minimum amount of price, and whatever is there comes from maa ka haath ka jadoo, right? Everything is associated with the cook. He doesn't demand anything else from the final product itself. So I guess find out a place where the consumer is being underserved, go poke a hole in that and start comparing it to other places, other products, basically his entire lifestyle. We can see a very clear disconnect between the way that the consumer interacts with our category and the way the consumer interacts with every other category. The consumer is not often taught to demand from us because there is nobody to demand from. So I think somewhere between those two streams where it flows, right, where he's underserved but at the same time is unhappy, but he doesn't know that he knows better. It's a very tricky thing. I know it sounds like a lot of jargon, but if we talk to enough consumers, we'll be able to pick it out.
Very interesting.
Sure. I mean, the way I would define opportunity, I think, is it's about really identifying the right space at the right time. I think these are, for me, the two pillars of opportunity: space and time. Space being the product, category, segment that you want to, or the need state that's not been addressed, the white space that's not been addressed. But I think an equally important factor is time. Is this the right time for the product or category? For example, there have been brands in the health space which have been launched, which was probably not the right time, maybe about a decade back. But given what's happened in the last 5 years, today people are more health conscious. Behaviors have evolved a little bit more, not changed, but evolved. So right now is probably the right time. So I think these are the two factors or pillars that I would look at when defining opportunity: right space and right time.
That's really, really interesting. I think what I pick up from all of you is everybody's defined opportunity as a crevice, right? Like between space and time, or between underserved and the consumer doesn't know, he's unhappy, but you identifying that, or your definition of like identifying a need to be able to cross sell. So that's really interesting, because probably it's also not necessarily about like a huge space, right? Like it's not very visible to the naked eye, but that's where you get to, and you kind of identify it, which actually leads me to my next question, which is, so what is the art, or what is the science of identifying this opportunity? Because you all are speaking in such a nuanced language about opportunity. How do you do that? How do you get to these extremely fine and beautiful spaces? Let's start with you, Sonam. How do you get there? How do you identify that? This makes sense. Let's explore this.
I mean, first thing is that we are all consumers. It's not them. We all are, right?
Can you hold the mic a little?
Yeah. So we are all consumers, and the first and foremost important thing is that, do I relate to that opportunity? I'll give you an example. During COVID times, beauty industry was not doing so well because people were hardly stepping out, right? But at the same time, the most important thing that came in play was masks. Now suddenly that mask became a fashion accessories. People started selling those masks as fashion accessories. Now that was a need converted into something that is more desirable, and that was the opportunity. So it's, when you think of it as when we are consumers and what we need, I think it's right there. We just need to ask that question and see how do we convert that need into a desirable opportunity.
How interesting. Any other any other examples, or can you like any science or art that you use?
Yeah, I don't know if there are any examples, right? But if I have to talk about my industry, right, and how, let's say, for example, Licious came about, the science would be the numbers: $30 billion industry, 5% of the GDP, all of that, blah. But the art is about, let's say, a core gut feel, right? We are the poster children for vegetarianism around the world. The fact is that 70% of us are meat eaters. Somehow there is something which doesn't fit right here, right? When you go and when you look at this, yes, we get excited by, and I completely agree with Sonam in this, in that we are also consumers. So what exactly excites us? Yes, dal makhni excites us. Yes, palak paneer excites us. But nothing excites a Punjabi like butter chicken. Nothing excites a Bengali like ilish, right? We are actually talking to the very ultimate core of a person here, and so listen to the gut feel as well. And when the data and your core gut feel that this consumer is not getting what he wants, art and science would kind of converge on that point, and that I would feel is when you have an opportunity.
That's so beautiful. Rohan, any?
I mean, if I knew the art and science, I would probably be in a very different place. But um, uh, I mean, there is. I mean, today's world, I think there is enough data. I think for me, the probably the best. I think what digital and D2C gives you access to is it removes the layers between you and the consumer. I think the ability for a business or a brand to interact directly with the consumer, not just to talking to them, but actually hearing, seeing, feeling their behavior, feeling what they're doing is actually where the art and science sort of converge, right? Brands like Licious, they are seeing what consumers are doing on a day-to-day basis, and I think that's where I think a lot of experimentation and just seeing trends emerge is where I think art and science probably meet.
Very, very interesting, because I think what I hear you all say is, you need to sort of wear new specs to look at this consumer, right? Like, so new lenses to look at the same consumer, probably some kind of reframing or looking at data and gut together, studying the consumer in probably their context, looking at how they're living, how they are behaving, pretty much probably like how it's been done, for decades. I mean, so is there anything else, any other magic potion that you all use which helps you identify these opportunities?
I don't know if it's actually not a magic potion. We see a lot of. I mean, we're all like I think someone said we're all consumers. You have I see a lot of people. You have your mobile devices. You're searching for things. You're interacting with things. I think these are all signals that are now easily available. Most I think a simple Google search trends gives you a lot of behavioral understanding of where in a category or in a particular segment where searches are coming from. And I think 9 out of 10 times at least I'm surprised with where the searches are coming from and what people are really searching for. So I think that's the biggest the biggest change that's happened. Like I said, fundamentally nothing has changed, but I think the biggest change is the way people are actually finding information, discovering brands, discovering products has changed. And I think a lot of that detail and data is available. And to experiment with that, the time is required is not very much. And I think that's the biggest difference between what a D2C or a young new age brand does versus what a legacy brand does.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah.
I quite agree with Rohan also, because we keep doing A/B testing, these data that Meta throws at us. I think it's very easy to kind of understand that, okay, what's working, how it's faring, and then working with it. I think the one word that keeps coming to my mind again and again is that that agility with how we kind of work and keep changing and evolving.
Right. Very, very interesting. I just want to move to our last segment, which I was wondering, what might be some of the barriers to either identifying an opportunity or probably to, bring it to life? What are some things that prevent, companies like yourselves to bring an idea to life?
I don't know, I guess again, I think my bias as a consumer researcher will come to the forefront here. If I talk to my colleagues, they might have different barriers. But the way that I see it is simultaneously there is too much data, what Rohan was talking to before. Extracting insights from that has itself become an art form. I think for consumer insights guys, figuring out that art form, to which data to listen to, filter out the noise, that becomes one very important thing, and that is a barrier. I know it's a weird thing to tell again, but too much data, especially with my industry, there is also the problem of too little data. The category has been shrouded in a lot of taboo. Even now, a lot of people don't talk about it. It's not very easy to have constructs of data, which is reliable data, which comes in, which talks about at-home consumption, etc. So there is also a whole sector of data which is missing. and we cannot get that without an infrastructure in place. So yeah, too much data, too little data, and I think the third one is consumer enablement. Consumer right now, for example, our consumer doesn't even know what he wants. We are teaching the consumer that there is a better quality product which is available, and we are pushing him towards it and helping him progress along the way. So yeah, so basically these 3 points, at least from my perspective and from Licious' perspective.
Anything else to add?
Um,
Go ahead.
I think from a barrier to opportunity identification, I think a lot of times we focus too much on the what a consumer is doing, saying, acting, versus the why. And often that leads to a very limited view of what the opportunity might be, and maybe actually missing a bigger opportunity. So I think focusing too much on the what and not the why, for me, is actually a big barrier to opportunity identification.
I think lack of patience. I feel we lose faith and we lose our patience too soon to kind of judge the consumer, and we decide that something is not faring right too early, and not giving enough time for the consumer to register things and to understand, because they are not just seeing us but millions of other brands together. So it's not fair to kind of judge them in that few seconds and then say that, okay, no, this is not working, or they don't like it, or a consumer is like that. So I think that is one biggest barrier that I feel we all face.
That's really interesting, because that's against the definition of your industry, right? Like, which is anchored on agility. And then you're saying the barrier is, lack of patience. So that's an interesting contradiction. But this whole thing, fundamentally, what you all are saying is that the consumer is at the center, and how might you understand what they need, in a deeper way would be critical. So too much data, I think what you're meaning is to get the right data, right? Like to be able to, the right data to answer the right questions. And like you're saying, understanding the why behind the what. All of that, if you don't do, then, then those could be barriers to really bringing an opportunity to life. So we're at the last 1.5 minutes. So I just wanted to know from you, and I'm going to ask like each one, what is your mantra for success, or, for learning? So Rohan, let's start with you.
I think what I just said, for me, it is increasingly, especially because we are working with so many different consumer brands trying to understand habits, behavior. It's really to understand the why, and not just the what. I think if we spend, and doing that with absolute clarity and simplicity in a world that's complicated and people are complicated enough, I think is really the mantra. So just focusing on the why and not, and I think then the what comes easier, and doing it with just simplicity and clarity, for me, is my current mantra that I'm living with.
How about you, Shreyas?
Weirdly enough, I completely agree with him, right? Actually, no, that's not weird. That's very simple. Yeah, the way that I would put it, again, in consumer research parlance, is try and drill down to the lowest rung of Maslow. Understand exactly what your product is doing for them. What is the role that you expect the product to play for them? What is the problems that you want to solve for them? All of it is just a fancy way to say, understand the why of the opportunity, like Rohan just mentioned. I would say, yeah, that is my primary mantra.
Yeah, I'm a consumer, and my mantras keep changing. But
that's cool.
so, but I would just say that I think accepting change and evolving with time is my mantra.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for a scintillating discussion. So what I gather, what I learned from all of this is that the fundamentals don't change, right? The consumer remains at the center, and it's critical to understand the consumer beyond the obvious. And I also learned that opportunities exist in crevices, and you need probably specialized to see them. And that comes from absolute commitment to who you're serving. So thank you so much. It's been like a fantastic session, and thank you for your time. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Shreyas. Thank you, Sonam.
Person being, do you believe that new age organizations are offering experience versus legacy organizations which have established offerings? Do you believe that new age, this question is from Ria HUL. So, do you believe that new age organizations are offering experience versus legacy organizations that have established offerings?
New,
New age organizations offering experience.
Whereas legacy offices are just offering product.
Yeah.
I don't know if, sorry. One more. I don't know if I really agree with that statement. The product is still at the heart. It's just that I think with a lot of the ecosystem evolving, the kind of channels that we interact with, the consumers evolving, we are able to control the experience a little better. Of course, if you are an experience product, of course, if you are a service product, there's a greater role for it. But I don't really see us offering overarchingly as an experience itself. We control a huge aspect of the experience, yes, but that is what I think, if given a chance, any legacy system would do. And I think, if I'm not wrong, they're doing the same as well now.
yeah, I tend to agree. I think the new age brands are just trying to elevate the consumer experience because of maybe faster, but I don't think legacy brands are not offering a good experience.
Yeah, I think the experiences are different, the way we offer it, but both are giving experiences.
As D2C brands, there is tremendous opportunity to micro segment and address different jobs that consumers want to get done. Digital is a place where consumers can be different people, take on different identities. How are D2C brands reaching out to this multi identities?
If I explain that, you'll get my job. uh, we, again, like any other endeavor, we are trying to do a lot in this. We are trying to fail a lot in this, and we are trying to learn a little bit enough to to keep continuing on the path, right? Yes, micro segmentation is an option. Yes, consumer behavior varies greatly on digital space. Yes, we have the first cut look at how exactly this varies, but it also comes with a lot of, I don't know, what I would like to call Brownian motion, which I don't really like. Like, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of activity which happens on digital, which is essentially random as well. Which is why I said the art for consumer insights, guys, would be to remove that and actually start picking up patterns which lead to behavior. See, the thing with a lot of technological change is we are altering behavior before we are changing values or attitudes, right? So we have to kind of see it within that lens, and it becomes a lot more muddled. It's not as simple, but yeah, we, if anybody is doing it, D2C brands are at the forefront of doing it.
I think D2C gives you a lot more signals, very different types of signals, because so it's not just about segmenting, it's about, we look at it as segments of signals that come in. And I think using those signals to really define who your consumer is, who they are, and what really brings them back to the platform and gets them to act. So I think it's more about really what it gives you. While of course you can target, micro target, etc. I think what it really gives you is signals to better define your consumer.